Doom is probably the best combination of video games and a Slayer album cover.
Doom was like the Danzig of video games. Like, Doom came in like this huge, muscle-bound, long-haired, sweaty, sexy as hell man, and just came in and, showed these other games like who was boss.
Doom was brought to us by id Software, John Carmack and the boys in '93.
The two Johns, as they're known, they're some of the first celebrities in the video game industry. There's John Carmack, who's, probably the brains behind the operation, but, not as cute as the other John Romero, who back in the day, I was so dreamy.
John Carmack and John Romero were like the first big kind of like video game rock stars. They looked like roadies for Warrant. But these guys lived the life, they bought the fancy cars, they had the model girlfriends.
They'd roll up on the sidewalk, they'd like kick over fire hydrants, they'd step on children. They could do anything, they made Doom.
Doom was so big and so hot, so controversial, and so dangerous and bloody and gory and fun that people wanted to see who was behind it.
I started sending fan mail to John Romero, but a little incident has to keep me at least 2 states away.
Yeah, the Johns, definitely were innovative in the industry. They definitely put first-person shooters on the map, and sure enough, that's probably one of the most popular styles of games today.
They were smart enough to tap into a vein of something that people really, really wanted to do in video games that they had never done before. And that is actually have a gun's eye view of blowing the living crap out of everything that gets in your path.
All I can say is this. Oh, now it's a double.
A lot of people think of Doom as the first-person shooter because it's kind of the poster child of the first-person, the FPS realm, and it wasn't. And a lot of people also know this, but Castle Wolfenstein was the first.
So Wolfenstein was really the first-person shooter. And of course, the Johns were associated with that.
So the same people that gave us Wolfenstein gave us Doom.
If you're gonna go 2 for 2, it's like 2 Grand Slams right off the top.
They're pretty close to each other chronologically, like when they were released, but Doom's just such a leap forward. Wolfenstein was the first, but Doom just took it to a new level.
In Wolfenstein, the levels were basically just a grid. Every block on that grid was either walls or open space.
In Doom, you could have a floor, you could have a ceiling, you could have rooms that were big kind of cavernous cathedral rooms. You could go upstairs, you could interact with the environment.
It introduced this idea of environments that kind of, had more dimension. And this really, broadened the world.
And you were running around Mars, and you had your guns, and they were monsters, and it was just crazy. It was the first time anyone had really been that inside a game. It was like you were living in it, and for a good 18 or 24 months, a lot of people my age were.
It was like a very visceral experience. It was the first game that was scary. And if you look at it now, it's kind of silly to say that something like that was scary back then. But if you played that game in the dark, you could hear things coming from behind you or all around you.
The name said it all. Doom. Actually, it shouldn't even be said Doom. It should be said Doom.
I believe the title of Doom came from rumor has it, a Tom Cruise movie, The Color Purple, with his pool stick name was Doom.
Color Money.
Color Money, same thing.
There's a legend that John Carmack was watching the Tom Cruise vehicle, Color Money, when he walks in, pulls out his cue, and people are like, oh, what's in the bag? And it's like, Doom.
And they said, yo, Doom, that's the way to go. Because this game will doom you because you're gonna be playing it all the time and you're not gonna do anything else.
So if that's true, I just don't really want to play the game anymore. That's the worst legend I've ever heard.
Doom is, basically the story is simple. You're a space marine, whatever the hell that is, and you're marooned on Mars.
And you're sent to help these guys after they made a huge blunder and open a portal actually to hell. You're a nameless space marine going into outer space to shoot stuff.
Stuff.
Great premise for a game.
I don't know. John Carmack said it best. He said that story of video games is like story in porn. It's like you don't need it.
It's about either being scared and blowing stuff away, or blowing stuff away. It's about blowing stuff away. Did I mention missiles? Missiles are cool.
Why aren't you ever like a space Navy guy? Why isn't there a space Navy or a space Army? It's always space Marines.
Well, Navy probably no water.
You have never been to space, Gabe.
It's true.
There's tons of water in space.
What's missing from the hero in Doom is a name.
The Space Marine in Doom was kind of like the sci-fi version of the unknown soldier. He's there when you need him, he saves the country or the planet, but you never really know who he is.
And I think that what that does is it allows you to sort of interpret the character. It allows you to be the character and to be you.
The movies, though, that influenced Doom, I'm sure it was along the lines of Total Recall and Night of the Living Dead.
I mean, obviously, Alien 1 and 2, not 3, because it wasn't out yet, but also because it's not very good.
When you get down to it, Doom is Aliens, but from your perspective.
Yeah, there was definitely I just wish they had the scene where you could shoot Paul Reiser.
Carmack and Romero knew that you could take this scary nightmare quality, the environments from Evil Dead, the environments from Aliens, and then give a gun to the player and let them do something about it.
The weapons from Doom, there was the shotgun, which was my personal favorite.
The big machine gun, but then you had a blaster rifle.
There are rocket launchers, grenade launchers, and if a gun runs out of ammunition, your fists.
But the best way to take out anything in Doom has got to be the chainsaw. That is when the game got totally immersive for me.
And the mother of all guns, the BFG 9000.
Doom was also one of the first games to offer multiplayer action between the characters in the game using either a dial-up connection or with fellow friends on a network.
And Doom was the first game that allowed players to do that. And now it's spawned, a huge legions of games. I mean, it's hard to think of a game now that isn't played online.
It was very difficult to set up.
Yeah,
It was incredibly difficult to set up.
Let's not make any mistakes. It was definitely for nerds.
Yeah.
So just like any other game that's, a huge smash, they're gonna come out with some sequels. Go figure.
Doom 2 picks right up where Doom 1 left off. You're just continuing your saga.
You're again a space marine, big surprise there. You're again on Mars, battling hellish demons, some new levels, some new weapons, some new monsters. But if you love Doom and you need more, well, Doom 2 is the way to go.
It's very similar to Doom 1. I think a lot of people were confused about that too. They're almost so similar. It's just like Doom 1 and 2 are just almost one big game.
Doom 3 was just recently released, marking the 10-year anniversary of the Doom series.
Doom 3 was actually a recreation of the first Doom. So all the fanboys are going wild. They couldn't wait to get their hands on it. But at the same time, kind of opened up the franchise to younger people or people who hadn't played it before.
And Doom 3 looks great. It's a fantastic game. It's very creepy. You're walking around. It's dark. It's scary. Obviously, the graphics are much better now. The frame rates are better. The environments are super realistic. It's just a great way to retell the story.
Which, if you might remember, was the motivating factor behind that big box office smash, Doom the movie.
Quake is the spiritual successor to the Doom series. Like how Doom took Wolfenstein to another level, Quake took Doom to a whole nother level.
And that was, again, Carmack and Romero working together. And then Quake went on to really eclipse Doom and be like the dominant game for like the next 7 or 8 years. Whenever anyone was playing a game, it was Quake.
It was a lot more advanced because it was fully 3D, whereas Doom used a lot of tricks to make it look 3D.
And it was kind of cool to see dimensions in your weapon and see dimensions in the room. And that was something we never went backwards from.
Again, pushing the limits, like really being innovative. John and John went out and hired Trent Reznor to do the soundtrack.
The first one was composed by none other than Trent Reznor of 9 Inch Nails. He did the game's soundtrack and sound effects. And the nail guns have little 9 Inch Nails logos on them.
Right after Quake was released, John Romero left id, went on to plow his own path and work on a game called Daikatana that came out like 70 million years later and totally sucked. That goes to show you what happens when you break up a winning team.
The evolution of Doom continued, but without Romero. Romero was out on his own.
Carmack's still successful. He stuck with the Doom franchise. Romero's making cell phone games now, so I think we can tell who was the Simon and who was the Garfunkel in that little group.
A few years ago, it released the source code for Doom, which would allow people to make games of their own and also make their own modifications to the game.
And people did a lot of interesting things about it and still do to this day. There's like a 3D accelerated version. There's a version you can play over the internet where it's actually easy to set it up now. And I think it's interesting that people continue to improve the game 10, 15 years later.
Everybody who's interested in video games or game history or just having fun should go back and play the original Doom.
It's like playing a piece of history. It's almost like the new Pac-Man. It's just such a classic that everyone should go back and play.
You should play Doom because if you don't play Doom, then you don't know what you're talking about. Doom and Castle Wolfenstein are the foundation of pretty much all 3D video games, and everything developed out of that. So everything essentially references that, kind of like the Iliad.
Again, that's the history of games. You won't know where Quake came from. You won't know where Counter-Strike came from unless you actually see where it started.
I bet if you asked which first-person shoot-'em-up game has been played the most, it would probably be Doom.
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 Best game ever.
Best game ever.